Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the regularly scheduled Rossmore Community Services District meeting for Tuesday, September 10th, 2019. May we have a roll call, please?
Director Barkay?
Here.
Director Niddickman?
Here.
Director DeMarco?
Here.
Director Maynard?
Here.
President Casey?
Here. This evening, we have someone from the Orange County Sheriff's Department, Mr. Frederick Salandia. I hope that's how I pronounce his name, and he will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance this evening. So, welcome.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and Board. Thank you. The U.S. flag is the emblem of our nation and the leader of the free world. Let's all please stand and pledge of allegiance to our nation. Please recite with me. I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And before we start this evening, the agenda this evening, I'm sure you all know that tomorrow is the 18th anniversary of the awful terrorist attacks on the World Trade Center. And so I wish to observe a moment of silence in memory of all of those who lost their lives on that tragic day. So would you please join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. And once again, we have someone coming back we've seen already this evening from the Orange County Sheriff's Department, Senior Emergency Management Program Coordinator Frederick Salandia. I think I'll just call him Frederick. He's going to give a presentation on disaster preparedness. So please take it away.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and board members. Today I'm going to be talking about Orange County community disaster preparedness. And what this effort is about building community resilience and ensuring that our communities are properly prepared to withstand and weather out any type of disaster that could affect your community or those around you. I've been with the Emergency Operations Center for about 5 years now and have a long-standing career in emergency and field operations and have the privilege of being assigned to public education and outreach, which is my purpose here this evening, to be able to present and give an overview of preparedness. The mission of the Orange County Sheriff's Department Emergency Management Division is to properly mitigate against, prepare for, respond to, recover from any types of disasters. And those are intricate and complex planning operations to be able to ensure that we can coordinate our resources throughout Orange County to be able to effectively support our community members. The county is designated as an operational area by the state of California, and each county in the state is that designation. And our Emergency Operations Center serves as the nerve center and hub for all of Orange County and all of the cities and special districts that lie within it. All the coordination, communication of response and recovery efforts happen at our Emergency Operations Center, which is located at Loma Ridge. And within that district is our town here of Rossmore. Everyone has a responsibility, and we have a commitment to all of our constituents to be able to support them during any types of disasters that may occur. Now, it's not by coincidence that I'm here today and on this month. September is recognized nationally as National Preparedness Month. And we reach out throughout the community to all of our residents and to all of our communities to challenge everyone to be prepared for any type of an emergency. Our theme this year nationally is Prepared, Not Scared. Being prepared helps to relieve any anxiety and helps to build confidence to ensure that people can weather through any types of disasters that may occur. Here within Orange County, we have two significant programs that are designated as community outreach. One of them is Alert OC, which is our alert and warning system to notify our residents about disasters, impacts, critical information that they can receive. And it is a free service that is provided by the county to all of the constituents within Orange County. The other program that we have is Ready OC. Ready OC is our preparedness and resource program that allows our community members to go to and access toolkits and information and resources to help build kits and put considerations together and build a plan to be able to weather out any types of disasters. The actions that we always ask and pose to everyone is, are you prepared? Resiliency really starts as an individual. We start as an individual, as a family or a residence or a home, then as a community, and then builds up from there. And if we can build that resilience, then we can be better prepared when any type of disasters actually occur. Now, what we are proposing here in coordination with Mr. Mendoza, we are launching a campaign for the community of Rossmore to be prepared, to build a plan and to understand what preparedness means. And what we are proposing to do is to open up a series of presentations and workshops where community members can attend to learn about what preparedness really means. Now, our preparedness program and workshop goes beyond the typical presentations you see that encompass focusing on 3 days of water, 3 days of food. Preparedness is really a much broader aspect in terms of what you need to do to prepare. And our presentation is going to cover these specific topics in terms of what is a disaster and its effects, what are the hazards that are specific here in Southern California and to Orange County so that we can focus on the most likely things that occur. And then we're going to talk about prevention, the things that you can do to help reduce the impacts from disasters, the preparedness, supplies, training that you can take, and to be able to be prepared for any types of impacts and outcomes from those. Response, what you can do during a disaster. One of the most common things that you'll hear during earthquake month, which is in October, is about drop, cover, and hold on. There's other techniques that can be shared and can be employed and practiced within a community and within a household that can help better protect individuals during a disaster. And then, most importantly, what I believe is recovery, because the disaster only lasts for so long, but the impacts can be long range, and how you can protect yourself financially, physically, and within your residence to be able to weather out these disasters. Our presentation will cover all of these topics in depth. It's interactive. It's a workshop where residents will walk out with the start of a plan and some basic skills that they can employ that day that they walk out to start preparing for any types of disasters that may arise. We'll be taking a look at all those 4 components in depth, as well as getting a plan, disaster supply kits, and most importantly, getting signed up for Alert OC. Information is key, and valid, vetted information is vital to ensuring that a community is well informed so that good decisions can be made when disasters strike. So what we're asking for everyone is, if you want to learn more, come attend our preparedness presentation, come to our workshop, learn how to be prepared, and be ready to weather out any types of disasters and emergencies that may arise. There's more to come. With that, I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Can we ask a few questions?
Fred,
Yes, sir.
you mind answering some?
Yes, absolutely.
I'm assuming your presentations will be here,
Yes, sir, they will.
and how many of them do you expect to put on?
So right now, it's going to be dependent on what the interest is, but our commitment is to this community, so we will do as many as necessary to make sure that we have a good, effective plan in place for the community.
So obviously, I'm aware that the single most important activity is to prepare ourselves, not to rely on others.
Yes.
But what does the Sheriff's Department specifically have in mind, if anything, as a plan for Rossmore in the event of the variety of disasters that potentially could afflict us?
So the Sheriff's Department is one of the largest departments within Orange County, and they fall under the jurisdiction of the operational area. The plans that they execute are already in place at the county level. So there is a county-wide emergency operation plan that puts together guidelines and operating procedures for how we will manage and how we will effectively respond and recover from those disasters. With the sheriff's specific responsibilities, they are for protection of life and property, and their primary function in terms of disasters typically is evacuations. That is their key item. When large-scale evacuations occur, the Sheriff's Department's responsible for that.
So would part of your presentation when you come into our community be more specific about what are the evacuation plans, reunification centers, et cetera, for the Rossmore area?
Not at this time, sir. So this presentation will talk about evacuations and what they are and how they function at a larger level, but that will be given at a later time that will be more in depth. That's an entirely different type of presentation for how we evacuate and what evacuations mean for this specific community.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Board.
Thank you, Fred.
And, next, along the same lines, we have Rossmore Homeowners Association Emergency Preparedness Coordinator Art Remney with an update on Rossmore community preparedness.
Good evening, Board. I appreciate the time. Joe and I have been working with the Sheriff's Department and the local agencies to start the conversation. There isn't anything specific for Rossmore as far as a response, an evacuation plan or anything like that at the county level. Every unincorporated area, every city has their own individual plan that the county will support. But there isn't anything in place yet because we haven't done it. At least that's what we've been told. So with that, Joe and I are working, so that's the Rossmore Homeowners Association and and Joe are coming together to try to create the plan, get the agencies, the local agencies around us, the school districts, the local cities, the nonprofit organizations that are around us, that find out what resources that we have that we can help them with a disaster and vice versa, so that we can work this end of the county as a one unit as opposed to being in silos where Seal Beach has a plan, that's awesome, and they don't expect anything from Rossmore, and then we drop 10,000 people out into their plan because we exit into Seal Beach, and now their plan kind of gets messed up because we just pulsed 10,000 people into it. So we just have to coordinate that setup, and that's what we're working on. My guess is it'll probably take a year, maybe two, to get all the pieces in place and then get a plan so that we can educate the community on what they should be doing with the setup. But all of that is incumbent upon coordinating with the Sheriff's Department, because that's our agency who is in charge of us. So that's the update as it is. If you got any questions, I'd be happy to.
The question I have is, like these other communities and different organizations, have they already been told by you guys about what you're planning on doing so that they're in front of this?
We're working on that. We've talked with the school district already. The school district has a plan for the schools, but they don't obviously have any plans for Rossmore itself. And if you take I don't know, how many kids are in the four schools here? I've forgotten the number. 5?
I would guess 5,000 maybe?
Yeah, something like that. So you have that many kids in our four schools, and you bring all of those parents who are freaking out, panicking, that have to come to get their kids. That creates a whole different issue if we're trying to evacuate, evacuate, whatever. So, I mean, just the logistics of the picture, we just have to plan that and figure out what that looks like, coordinate with the school district, coordinate with the Sheriff's Department, and then coordinate with the two cities, because that's where they're all ultimately going to leave. That's the only options.
Exactly. Sure.
The school district, I know, has their own emergency planning and an emergency operations center, mini one, in the district office. So they're fairly well prepared, and they drill regularly. You know, I'm just wondering, thinking out loud, let's assume there's a big earthquake, it's inevitable, and it's quite large, and there's a bunch of collapsed homes, and first responders, of course, are not available, and they may not be for several days. and now you have injured people with no shelter. I wonder if there's funding even available to maybe create in the buildings that we have, like emergency sheltering with supplies where people could meet at Rush Park, Rossmore Park, at least to have shelter and availability of some basic water, food, medical supply needs.
Those are all possible. I don't know about the funding side of it, but those are all possible. One of the things that the Red Cross does is set up shelters. They pre-scout locations, like Los Alamitos High School has been scouted. They know what they can do there. Old Ranch Country Club has been scouted. They know what they can do there. That's a care and reception center. So the Red Cross does that. None of the schools in the tract are on that list yet. That's something that we definitely want to talk to the school district about, talk to the Red Cross about. Can they do their regular assessment on that so that that's added to the list of possibilities? Rush Park is not on the list. That's something else that we can check out, because the Red Cross has standards of what they do with the shelters, what they need to put on an effective shelter, what they need to bring. They know all that ahead of time, so when they deploy, they know what they're doing. That's one of the advantages the Red Cross has, is that they plan shelters, they plan reunification centers. It's what they do. So
I had a question for council and perhaps for Mr. Mendoza. My recollection was that it was, and I could be totally wrong about this, that every public agency had to prepare an emergency preparedness plan, and that we had prepared one a number of years ago.
I was going to mention one person that you definitely want to talk to is Henry Tabuada.
Yeah.
He also, another entity is the base itself.
Right.
But reach out to Henry, because I think some of the nuances is that we were able to provide the building, but we weren't able to provide the service. And there's some little glitches in how a special district works. But Mr. Tabuada, call it 8-9 years ago, he and I remember working with him on it. There's some nuances, and he has some experience that you want to reach out, because he's kind of ferreted and found at least the pitfalls, the snare wires, the traps type of thing for you to then navigate. And again, any plan needs to also, when you think about one of the best areas to service in times of need, is right across the street with that base, and the resources they have, and just the nature of safety being a base, because that's where a lot of people get scared.
right.
Is what happens when, okay, there's emergency, do thugs come into our neighborhood? How do we protect ourselves? How do we do that? So I'm very glad you're taking on this assignment, both you and Mr. Mendoza, because this is a critical area, something we hope and pray never happens, but still, this is a meaningful project that you're taking on, and I want to thank you for that.
Yeah, that's supposed to be the raison d'etre of the base, is emergency preparedness, emergency services.
And I know Henry reached out and worked,
Yeah.
but the problem with the base is you have circling leadership. They come and they last for 18 months, and then they get moved, and then someone else, and who knows in transition how that is managed.
Yeah. But yeah, we should have a plan on file with the county and the OES.
I don't know if it's on file with the county, excuse me, but there's a booklet that I have found and that Henry had put together.
There we go.
So
Okay.
we're feeding off that and we're adding to it. Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Perfect.
The other thing about the base is, depending on the size or scope of the disaster, fill in the blank, whatever kind you happen to have, they are the single location for LA and Orange County for all supplies from the federal government.
Right.
Everything will fly in and out of that base.
Right.
That will be their staging area, which is awesome for us. And it's also keeps us away from there, because they will be locked up fairly tight, because they are the supply station for whatever happens. There isn't another base in the basin area that is set up that way. So they will be, and it's also the regional headquarters for the state, for the emergency services. Right. They're all based there on the base. So it's strategically great to be here, and it's also, we can't rely on them, because they're going to be supplying everybody.
Well, no, I mean, think about it this way, you know, a major earthquake, you may not be able to drive anywhere. You'll have to walk somewhere. Are you going to walk all the way over the base with your broken leg bleeding on fire? No, probably not. But I'm certain that, I'm certain, sorry to paint that picture. I'm certain if we're relying on outside agencies and other people to provide for us what you're trying to do, it's not going to happen.
That's
So
correct.
if we're wanting to take care of our citizens in the event of an emergency, then we should prepare for that.
Yep.
Whether it's here, Rush Park, Rossmore Park, or some other local center.
Exactly.
Because the reality is, people are going to only be able to get as far as they're legitimately able to walk. And walking over to the base, if they even know how to walk over there, is going to be a problem, or even Old Ranch. So I would much prepare. There's no hurry, but we need to be deliberate and to do this correctly, one step at a time. I'd much rather prepare the Rossmore citizens to be self-sufficient and not rely on others that are going to have a much bigger picture platform to worry about.
Exactly. One of the things that West Orange County area has, it has a CERT team that is sponsored by the 6 surrounding cities of Rossmore. Rossmore kind of falls into their bucket because we're surrounded by that group. They have a program called Neighbor for Neighbor that is exactly that. It's a block by block, area by area program that unites the neighbors, gets the neighbors to know each other, because the immediate responders, who are your next door neighbors, are the ones you can count on when the first responders aren't going to be able to get there for days or weeks.
You talk about even CERT teams. Those CERT teams are actual real people, and they have their own families.
Yes,
So in
we
the
are,
event
and
of
yes, there is.
So in the event of an emergency, those CERT people are most likely going to be taking care of their own families first before they're going to be available to take care of the public.
And that's exactly what the CERT program is taught. You take care of yourself, your family, your block, and then you can reach out to other areas, other people, be part of the team. So in my mind, we need to have every block in Rossmore have that kind of conversation so that they are prepared to help themselves in that 72 hours to 7 days of there isn't anybody here. They're just not coming. They're not, either they're not able to come or they have other higher duties that they have to attend. Hospitals, bridges, those other kind of things.
100%. And to think, I mean, the idea of 3 days worth of water and food is really nice. The reality is it should be at least a week, if not longer. I mean, if
You're exactly
if you
correct.
think about the big disasters like going on right now, you know, in the Bahamas, remember Katrina, it was weeks before first responders were able to get in. You know, my business partner volunteered to go to Katrina. He's a physician also. He was there about a month later. There were still people that hadn't been touched yet by first responders. And that was a month out with all the resources of the federal government. So the reality is you got to be self-sufficient for a long time. And how to do that is possible, but you got to know how to do that. And that's part of the training. And then there's always going to be people that aren't going to prepare, and there's going to be people, despite their best efforts, their houses are going to collapse and they won't have access to the stuff that they neatly hid and put away. So now they're going to be out on the street wondering what to do, and their next door neighbor or a community center, et cetera, has to be accessible to them.
And actually, the same situation you guys were just discussing recently happened in Ridgecrest. The mayor of that city, after the, what was it, like a 7.72, 7.3 in that neighborhood, his house was so heavily damaged that he had to worry about his wife, his children, and several relatives before he could ever concentrate on any other part of the community and what was going on. So you plan for the best, but you prepare for the worst, I guess, is sadly what you have to do.
Exactly.
Now, the RHA's Neighborhood Watch program is also involved in that, are they not?
The Neighborhood Watch program does Neighborhood Watch really well, but we haven't tapped them or expanded them into a neighbor for neighbor kind of program as yet. We need to get, before we could even ask about that, we really have to get a plan together so we can be systematically getting that information out, the right information.
So that's something that you're working on, because you have an emergency response, but they don't have the kind of neighborhood block captain, the kind of spread that the neighborhood watch
Correct.
does.
In my mind, ideally, you take the neighborhood watch and just kind of expand the scope a little bit and
Yeah.
make that the neighborhood block the communication central for that particular area, because you already have them in place.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. There's nobody, there's no other institution that at that level that, you know, is organized to be able to reach out to the blocks.
Exactly. And one of the biggest problems that seems to get missed is we got food, we got water, awesome. We don't have any communication. Cell towers are down or power's down or whatever. There's no way to get a message from here to the north end of the tract except by Pony Express.
And of course, I mean, another issue is obviously we don't have our own public safety here. We rely on the sheriff, and so we don't have either the authority or the ability to do anything more than try to get the sheriff out here for emergency situations.
Correct.
And they're going to have a lot on their plate, which is
Right, and we're the far edge of the county.
yeah. Well, there's the, you know, if they're out there in Stanton, they're not quite so far, but yeah, we are.
Anything else?
Thanks, Art.
Thank you.
Thank
Let
you
us know
so
if we
much.
can help.
Will do.
That brings us to additions to the agenda, of which there are none. And so next is public forum. Any person may address the Board of Directors at this time upon any subject within the jurisdiction of the RCSD. However, any matter that requires action may be referred to staff at the discretion of our board for a report and action at a subsequent board meeting. And so this evening I have several cards from our residents, and let's start with topic of tree trim and removal, and Lynn McCarthy on Salmon, I guess it's Salmon Road. Is Lynn here?
She just walked out.
Oh, all right, so we'll, moving on. Next topic, tree policy in Rossmore. Angie Epstein from Oak Knoll Drive.
Good evening. I have addressed the board previously about 9 years ago, when they removed a tree on my property, on the walkway property, and they replaced it with a tree that wasn't of my choosing, which is totally fine. However, this is causing problems now as it is lifting the grass area. I've read your policy. I have a copy of it here, and all I'm asking is that this get reviewed and possibly amended. In section 3080.40 for tree removal, and also at 3080.42, non-valid reasons for removing trees. I'm asking for consideration. I have offered to replace the tree. I cannot continuously make improvements on my property because of the problems that this tree is causing. It's uplifting my grass. It's raised
The roots
now.
underneath it? The roots are uplifting the grass?
Yeah, they're uplifting the grass. They've already replaced the concrete out front once. And I don't have a problem. I just want us to come to some kind of resolution, because I'm not the only resident having this trouble. And I just really, instead of saying, you know, it's our policy, we don't remove healthy trees, trying to work with a resident who's trying to do the best for the neighborhood. I try to upkeep my property. I don't want anybody to fall. There's huge pods that get dumped on the sidewalk that I see people with their walkers going through, and they're having difficulties. And I try to sweep it as often as I can. I know that those are excluded as the reason for a tree removal in there, and I'm just asking for a little understanding about what it's like to be a resident in here and have to constantly do repairs. The pipes need to be repaired because the roots get into the pipes. Those are all on our expense. And I don't know, I pay a lot of property taxes to live here. And I don't understand why we can't, between the RCSD board and the residents change this policy or come to some kind of agreement or resolution as a unity to fix the problems that we're having. I mean, I offered to pay for the tree removal and replacement of a new tree. They don't even plant those trees anymore. It's not even on the list of approved trees, and unfortunately, I got stuck with it.
So ideally, you'd like the tree removed and then replaced with something.
Yes, absolutely.
Is there a way to fix it without removing the tree?
Well, I was told by Mary Kingman that it was okay for me to remove all my grass and all my landscaping, cut all the tree roots, and then replant my grass. But that, again, that's at my expense, and as you know, the tree roots gravitate to water. So when my sprinklers are on, the roots are going to go back towards the grass, to where the water source is.
Can you, thank you for your comments, and in fact, we are looking at a wide variety of possible changes to the tree policies. Director DeMarco and I are on the tree committee, and we've been looking at this for a few months now. But what I'd like to know from you, and maybe you want to follow this up in writing, is specifically what you're looking for in terms of the tree policy. And I'm not asking for legalese, but what changes you would like to see from a...
I can tell you that right now.
Okay.
I would like, with the approval of the board or Mary Kingman, at my expense, to be able to remove the tree and replace it with a board-approved one or Mary Kingman's list of trees at my expense.
So are you suggesting that any resident of Rossmore would be able to remove their trees and replace it with a new tree? Is that what you're asking for, or are you saying only if certain criteria are met?
Well, I think the criteria needs to be reviewed. I think that when you're having a problem and they have to constantly come out and replace the concrete, you have an issue with the tree.
Okay.
Those kind of trees aren't planted anymore.
Yeah. I mean, because we clearly, I mean, you know, we don't want to be replacing trees willy-nilly, obviously, and nobody wants that.
Absolutely, I agree. I love the trees in the neighborhood.
And that's why I was trying to figure out what criteria you're asking for. But I know there's a lot of people, so I don't want to take too much of your time. And if you want to follow up with
I would be happy to
anything.
follow up with a letter or some suggestions. I do have them. And in addition, I printed out a map copy of the tree trimming that they are doing. Now it's on the RCSD website. And where my home is, right here, it's out of the boundaries. So it's not even included in getting trimmed.
That's,
Probably just not included on a graphic.
Well, they have an outline. This is
understood.
19, or this is 2019, this is 2020. My street, all the way up to Los Alamitos Boulevard, from Montecito is not even in a case, it's not even mentioned there.
Joe will look into that because that's most likely a clerical error and not a
Okay.
factual.
I would think so,
It's not
yeah.
factual. We
Well,
actually have
they
every
haven't
single
trimmed my tree in
identified.
years.
yeah.
I think it's every 4 years right now. So
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
just looking at the map here. You're on Oak Knoll,
Oak Knoll, east of Montecito.
east of Montecito. Okay.
Oh, yeah,
that
over
would
the-
put
yeah.
that would put you in.
Do you see what I'm saying? All the way to Davenport. Then Weatherby, it's out. There's
This area right here
I see what you're saying, yeah.
is not in any.
So that was just a concern that I had.
Andrew,
I think that's an error.
you're in the tree twilight zone.
that's an
Yeah,
admin error.
they-
That has to be an admin error.
Yeah, that's
Administrative, that's not factual.
presumably District 2, but
Well, if it's
Presumably, but
posted,
we
They'll
don't
get-
know
they'll-
for sure.
Yeah. what
We'll
I'm
get to
saying
the
is I-
bottom of
I
that,
think that's
certainly.
not
We'll
correct.
resolve
I
that.
just hope that we could, just as a community, come together and have some
Sure.
kind of resolution. Some of these trees are 50 years old, and they're causing
True.
a lot of problems. And I love the trees.
no promise. I have no promises, and I only speak for myself. But we're definitely interested in any positive feedback. I mean, any kind of specific feedback, and we're listening.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll
Angie,
get a letter together.
I hear you, and
Yeah.
my perspective is, we're here to serve the residents of the community, not the other way around. And so if it makes sense to update the policy, so specific issues such as yours, we can take care of it, then that's what we should do. Now, obviously, we don't want people just deciding one day that they want to get rid of their tree because they don't like it for this reason or that reason,
I love the tree.
but your tree apparently
Yeah.
doesn't like you, and I think it's appropriate that
Thank
you
you, Dr.
shouldn't be.
Barkey.
I don't think you should have to chronically deal with root problems and this, that, and the other, especially if you're willing to help with the cost of putting in a new tree or digging up the old tree or what have you. I think there's room to create a policy that works for everybody.
Okay, well, I appreciate you listening to me and taking anything into consideration.
Yes, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay, next on the same topic of parkway trees, Mr. Craig Smith.
Good evening. So I came here tonight for much the same reason. There's a lot of banter, for lack of a better word, on next door about the parkway tree issue, and I actually feel fairly fortunate that I haven't had a lot of the issues that I've seen. We moved to Rossmore a little over 6 years ago, and when we moved in, we have 2 smaller trees in front of our house. Didn't really think too much of it at the time, but actually what appears is, I'm sure at one point there was a much larger tree or 2 that were taken out. And so for the last 6 years, we've had a constant problem with our sewers plugging up, and to the order of a couple times a year we've had to call out a plumber and clean out the lines. Not anything horrible, but we finally switched to another plumber recently, and they said, hey, let's take a picture of what's in the pipes, and we did that, and sure enough, big 6-inch main line that is 5 inches, I don't know if it's 6, but if it's 6 inches, 5 inches down, solid roots, little tiny opening at the bottom, and so he recommended that we clean out the lines, which he did. Cost me $1,000, and I'm hoping I don't have a problem going forward. So I don't have much to complain about. But I did go through and notice lots and lots of replies, and what I'd like to suggest, maybe similar to what the last person talked about, is what I will call baby steps, for lack of a better term. So there is a requirement to manage the parkway trees. RCSD does that through the arborist, or however that works. And it seems like the issues are, is there a way that if people are interested, and I've noticed a lot of people who are interested in either extra trimming of their trees because they didn't feel like it was trimmed enough, replacement of a tree that was, they felt was significantly a problem, but maybe wasn't viewed the same way from the RCSD perspective. If there was a way for the individual homeowner, if they're willing, and most people were very willing, it seemed like on this, these comments, to pay for this themselves. To me, it's a win-win. If the homeowner is willing to spend money to fix something, and the county doesn't have to pay to do this because they don't feel it's ready, trimming a tree a little bit extra, and it's still under the responsibility of the arborist to make sure it gets done in the right way and the right people are used, everybody's a little bit happier. And in a severe case where somebody wants to replace a tree, again, have to define the criteria, but I don't think a whole lot of people are going to want to spend a lot of money to replace trees just because and put in a tree of RCSD's choosing. I can't imagine that's going to be a pervasive issue throughout all of Rossmore. I personally have noticed in my area over the last year probably 10 trees that have been taken down. I mean, they were huge. They were, I've got to believe it was time, so there is that going on already. But for the cases where there is an agreement, a collaborative approach where everybody wins just seems to make sense.
Yeah.
Agreed.
And I know,
Yeah.
just to comment, we are working, like Director Nickman said, in the tree committee to hopefully resolve some of these issues. I can, just a couple things you said where, picking the trees, I know that we do not Mary suggests a tree. If there is no recommendation from the homeowner, then Mary will pick a tree. But I know my neighbors that have gotten, new trees, they chose their own tree. Okay, so it's not picked anymore by the RCSD or the
But I figured there was some list of approved trees.
Yes, there is a list of.
And so
you
whoever
can't
picks
plant-
it, I don't really care. Like I say, I don't have an issue whatsoever, but I would hope that you would pick the trees that don't have the
Correct.
huge root systems, that don't drop the pods, things like that. And it's great if you can allow the homeowner. I would have no idea what to suggest. I would look to Mary to suggest something because I have no clue.
And I
Something
wish
pretty.
there was a tree that didn't produce large roots, that wouldn't be attracted to pipes, but any
Yeah,
tree
well,
just
no.
about,
And
it's going to grow and cause
Put in a
problems.
plastic tree.
Yes.
Just so you know, I went through the process in 2017. I had a tree that had that disease that started going from the top to the bottom, and it should have probably been taken out 2 years prior, but they wanted to try to save the tree. Eventually, it had to come out. So, and this wasn't because I'm on this board. I said, what can I do? And she says, well, what do you want? I go, I want something that's going to grow fast. So she actually says, I do this for everyone. She actually said, here are the 3 ones based on your criteria. You want something that's going to grow real fast so you get a big tree again. You wanted low maintenance, and you wanted to see the fall changes. Those were the only 3 things I wanted. She gave me 3 different varieties and gave me like 5 addresses for each of these trees that are already in the community with how old of a tree it was. So I could see, wow, look at the size of that. That's only 5 years.
Yeah, that'd be great.
And sure enough, the tree in my yard, when it was first planted, spring of 2017, was a little less than my garage. And she was dead on. It literally grows 3 feet per year.
Wow.
And I love that tree. It's a community tree. I baby it when it's hot with the thing. But the process is supposed to be collaborative. You do get a say. You do get a pick. And if you're a little more high maintenance like me, you can ask questions, and she's here to serve.
Can I take just one more minute for one more idea? So I have another neighbor, unfortunately couldn't be here tonight. He's a doctor. He got called into work. He's had issues in the past with a tree that's in front of his house, trying to gain consensus or collaboration on this issue. He's had his own arborist come out and give a conclusion that was not agreed upon, okay? So another thing to talk about in your team, your tree team, would be how do you come up with something that's a little more complicated where an independent arborist or 2, whatever those qualifications need to be, can come out and make a determination and then come to some sort of mutual agreement that a tree that they feel is diseased or damaged and at risk of falling or causing damage, how can that be resolved? Because
arbitration.
Yeah.
And we do
Baseball
that.
arbitration.
Yeah.
No, but
I'm not sure you want to get into that. But,
But the few times that I can recall where people have hired their arborist, they have end up virtually entirely agreeing with Mary.
Yeah.
I do remember one time before we even had the tree committee, and this is why we actually now have a tree committee, is all of a sudden something like this came to the board, and then we ended up, in a sense, became the jury. So here's our arborist, here's this, we looked at the facts.
that's the
and then
My
as a
suggestion
group-
to this person would be to come to one of these meetings,
Yes.
plead their case, bring
Well,
in them.
Now we have a committee. They would go to the committee, and the committee would come up with their recommendation back to this board.
The suggestion is to bring it to the general manager. We have a tree committee.
Okay.
Mark and I listen to a lot of residents who have issues. Certainly if the tree's diseased, there's a major safety issue. We've removed trees. We do special prunes.
Like I said, I get that, but in this particular case, there is definitely not agreement between Mary and this person's arborist. So how do you,
It can
my
happen.
question was, how do you resolve that issue appropriately, right?
Yeah, and the way we have had a couple of incidents where the neighbor, it goes to the general manager, to the tree committee. If you don't like the tree committee's decision, it can go to the board.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And nobody wants to go to court if there's a way to avoid court.
No, of course not.
Right.
We don't.
Yeah.
we could-
Haven't found many
And
people
you know
that
what? Us 5 are residents just like you are.
That's it,
We
yeah.
just want to make the right decision
Yeah.
Yeah.
for the
Absolutely.
community.
Yeah, and obviously that's a big part of it. I mean, everybody agrees. even if they have a problem with their tree, they don't want a whole bunch of other trees removed. Everybody agrees that keeping the trees is like probably RCSD's #1 priority is, keeping our beautiful tree city.
Well, and I will say, with all the banter on next door, the one uniform thing that everybody agreed on is they all love the trees, and it wasn't against trees. It was against specific issues with very specific trees. Right. That was the issue. It was not at all. They love the fact that they focus on trees here and want to keep the trees.
Right.
We could tie in emergency preparedness when we replace trees. We put in fruit trees so we have something to eat.
There you go.
Fruit, I'm just kidding.
Well, additionally,
They would all drop on
additionally, the current palette of trees
pavement.
we have, it's been refined and updated over the years. So we're trying to get to species that are better growers, that are not less invasive with the root structure, so that are more in keeping with the community being happy with the list of acceptable trees. So hopefully, slowly but surely, we'll have it perfect.
Right, and I would
What do you
agree.
think?
Yeah.
Sounds good. It all sounds good.
Thank you very much.
All right,
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
All right. Okay.
Are you on?
No, I have someone that's on the list next. Well, I have somebody that's up next, so I'm going to call on first. Parkway Trees, Roberta Rabin. Thank you.
Good evening. I've been a member of this community for well over 50 years, and when I moved into my house, the tree, a pepper tree, was a good-sized tree already. I read over the Rossmore policy, the community policy for trees this evening. It sounds good, but our trees are no longer young trees. When those trees were first planted, that policy, was very effective. It was very appropriate. With trees now in front of many of our homes that are well over 50 years old, that policy no longer is appropriate for the care that these trees need now. Personally, I have had to replace the cement between the sidewalk and my front door twice because the tree in the parkway has uprooted that cement. It has cost me well over $8,000 to do that. And I'm watching as the cement between my front door and the sidewalk is being raised each year by the roots of that tree. What I'd like to propose is possibly a cooperative effort between the county and the homeowners in Rossmore so that we might be able to properly care for our trees, saving the community money, having them pruned when we feel it's necessary by someone who is trained to do the pruning, and be able to care for them to prevent any further damage. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, is there a mechanism to take care of the tree where the roots
I'm
don't?
sorry.
Is there a mechanism to take care, I'm asking you or somebody, is there a mechanism to take care of the trees where the roots won't affect sidewalks and grasses and things of that sort? Isn't that just the nature of older trees, that's what they do?
Yeah.
If you water deeply where the tree is in the median, the roots will tend to go
stay
down.
local?
Yes. But most yards are set up for sprinkler systems, so it's just the top that gets watered.
And so the question is, and for the tree people that are going to be meeting to talk about this is, roots happen, and I know in front of my house similar. Is that a reason to get rid of a tree and bring in a new one? I don't know.
And I know that our policy now is, the answer is no. It isn't a primary reason to remove trees, or else we would be removing probably half of our trees.
Right.
And we got to understand that we have a budget for trees, so does the county, and we remove, and I don't have the list in front of me, but we remove a lot of trees. RCSD's community money removes a lot of trees every year, it plants a lot of trees, and so does the county. So there's a list for the county to remove trees. There's our list to remove trees, and we remove a lot of trees, and we replace a lot of trees. So, but it's just the mere fact of I understand, the raising of the concrete, certainly the sidewalk, that has to do with the county. The county will come in and assess, either replace the sidewalk. If it's replaced too many times, then it goes higher up, and then they will deem that the tree needs to be removed. We have a couple of them on Martha Ann that are set to be removed. 60-year-old trees that are set to be removed because the county said it's time to remove these trees because we're tired of coming out and changing the curb and sidewalk. So there's a process. We just can't remove hundreds of trees. We have 5,500 trees in Rossmore. We can't remove hundreds of trees in a given year, in a given couple years. We just don't have the funding to do that.
Oh.
And we remove trees every year.
But we have a policy against removing healthy, established
Correct.
trees,
Yeah, indeed.
absent certain unusual circumstances, specific circumstances. There are circumstances under which we remove it, but in general, if you come in with a request to remove a healthy tree, it's going to be looked at very, very cautiously because we don't want to be removing a lot of these beautiful, healthy trees.
Exactly.
Mrs. Rabin, or Rabin, I was looking at my notes and it said that you were having problems with a tree that was next door to your property on the Golden State Water property, and that tree, we had asked them to remove that, and that was done. Do you recall that?
I'm sorry, once more, please.
I'm looking at notes here, and it said that that you're right next door to the Golden State Water property,
Yes.
and that they had a tree that was invading your property.
No,
No?
no, that tree isn't. The tree that I'm speaking about is the
Okay.
one directly in front of my house in the parkway.
Right. Okay.
And not asking
Different
to
group.
have that tree removed, but asking if we can form a cooperative effort with the county so that homeowners may be allowed to help care for those trees. You were talking about a budget. This actually would help to reduce the amount of money that would have to be spent.
And we are looking into that right now to have homeowners either apply for either a request to trim. Mark and I are looking at that right now, and we are discussing having the homeowners take some of the care for the trees. The problem, honestly, the problem is the way, so before all of us got here, okay, now maybe we didn't have a committee when you got here, but
No, we didn't.
there's policies in place. Okay, so trees are important. We know trees are important here in Rossmore. One of the main reasons why I moved here to Rossmore is the trees. So there's a policy that we're defending that can be changed by this board. Okay, but there is a policy, and certainly Mary is following the policy. And I'm glad everyone who's speaking about trees is coming here because we are the ones that can change the policy. But we know the history, most of us that have been here a while, we know the history. Okay, we know the concerns of what past boards and 20 years ago, what was involved in these tree policies. And one of them is every resident has a different opinion on how they should trim their trees. So we've seen butchered trees. So there's got to be some control on how you trim a tree. So there has to be now, we are talking about controlling who cuts the tree. So right now, who cuts our trees right now is a company, an arborist company that cuts trees for a living. Okay, so it cannot be just a gardener coming and trimming a tree because we know, being on the tree committee, a lot of them do a very poor job. Okay, and the trees are an asset of the whole community. The trees on the median. Not the trees in your yard, the trees on the medians are all of ours. So we're just managing all the trees. And certainly, I know Mark and I know that there are major concerns with our tree policy. So we are looking at changing some of them to where it's more agreed upon with every homeowner, okay, and to where maybe we go into the direction of, hey, I need a special trim, okay, and it's going to cost this much money. And maybe it's more in depth than what we normally trim a tree, certainly on our larger trees. So.
Okay, I am aware of the policy, and to the best of my knowledge, I was told that trees are trimmed about once every 4 years.
Correct.
It has now been over 6 years since the tree in front of my house was trimmed.
So I'll look that up.
That's a legitimate complaint. Mr. Mendoza, please look into that.
Definitely.
We're supposed to be serviced. And I just want to make one, just so you understand where I'm coming from. A couple of times you mentioned we want to collaborate with the county. I actually like the idea of people in Rossmore making decisions about our trees and not some person in the county who doesn't care, who's just going to do the minimum amount of work, when in doubt, tear things out. There's a reason for local control, and I'm not going to back down on that.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I have no more requests this evening, so anyone from the audience who would like to come forward? Thank you.
Well, I have not allowed anybody to trim my tree. I think the people who trim trees do not know what they're doing. Number one, you have a policy where you change the kind of trees that people have. The people who trim trees do not know one tree from another. I have a sycamore tree in front of my house that's gorgeous. I have not allowed anybody to trim my tree. I called the county. I told them that there was branches that were dead, and I needed somebody to come out. And they did come out, and they trimmed all the dead wood. Now, if you walk on Kempton, you will see sycamore trees that are disgusting because they have not been trimmed properly, and they're dead wood all over the place. Now, what's going on? Your whole idea of having 4,000 trees trimmed every 4 years is ridiculous. What you should do is have anybody who thinks their tree needs trimming to call you. It'll save you money, and it'll make the homeowner much more proud of their tree. But go take a look on Kempton and also on Chaucer, where I live now. And you'll see that there are trees there that have not been trimmed properly. And one man had his tree removed by the RCSD. When he wanted them, all he wanted was to have them trim the dead wood. But they took out the tree, and he was very upset. They still haven't planted another tree. And that's another policy of yours that's disgusting, letting people pick the tree that they want. When we moved to Rossmore, every street had a different kind of tree. Some were better than others, but I had a house, and I still have a house, on Inverness, and my tree died. And I put in a bay leaf tree, which is a gorgeous tree, which lasts forever. The idiots who came around to trim it practically ruined it. You know, I know that the tree will recuperate, but they don't know what they're doing. Now, there is a telephone number, and I have it. Anybody wants to call me. My telephone number is 562-596-0595. I will give them the name of the party in the county who will come out and look at your tree and decide whether or not they should trim it properly. Okay, do you know about that?
Yes, the county will come out for a safety trim. The county will come out to look at your tree, but they're on a different grid than ours. So there's two different grids.
Well, they came out for my tree, and the guy gave me his telephone number and said, anybody who has a problem with their tree, to call them, okay? So what you really should do is forget about having it trimmed every 4 years. That's ridiculous. You got different kinds of trees. Let each person call you when they think their tree needs trimming, because, I mean, your policy is you don't want the homeowner to trim their tree. Well, if you want to trim the tree, what you do is get up at 7 o'clock in the morning and call somebody else to trim it for you. You can do that, as long as nobody knows, right? But
I hope not.
what do you mean, I hope not? What difference
I
does
hope
it make?
nobody does that. And my other point to this would be, it's my understanding, whether you go through our arborist and our RCSD or someone through the county, the person that's going to be doing the trim is with West Coast Arborists. I'm quite
They
certain
don't
that's-
know what they're doing. There are a bunch of people who just go around and cut off the bottom parts of
Good,
the
but
tree.
you call a special number. I can't imagine they'd send somebody that was not with West Coast Arborists.
Well, maybe it's West Coast Arborists, but I don't know who you have trimming trees, because they do not know what they're doing. And it'll save you a lot of money if you don't have trees trimmed every 4 years. Just let each person call you when their tree needs trimming.
Just so you know,
Doesn't that make more sense?
I agree with you. I actually agree with you. That's why I actually told Mr. Mendoza, is there a way that the residents, if they wanted to file a permit, so the RCSD so just so you know, I've taken this idea to the tree committee to evaluate and for them to bring back to the board. I agree with that. I also agree that West Coast Arborists, they're not perfect. I don't like the way they trim my tree either, but they're who we currently have. I love the idea of having more control and at times saying, no, leave my tree alone. It's only 3 years old or 3 years planted. It didn't need a trim, but they trimmed it
Oh,
anyway.
West Coast Arborist is the one that goes around trimming everybody's trees.
And like I'm saying,
They do not know what they're doing.
I can't say that, but
I'm
I
telling
share
you.
your experience. I had a bad
I'm telling
experience
you,
with them
I've
as well.
lived here a lot longer than you.
Well, you don't even have to go there. I
No,
don't know why,
you
you don't
know,
need to get
there's-
snarky.
There's a bunch of trees on Inverness that are just gorgeous, and they've been there for a very, very long time, and they're still there, and it's hard to trim them and make a mistake. But
Okay.
other trees need different kinds of trimming. So basically, that's my
Okay. Well, thank you.
solution.
Can you state your name just for the public record?
My name is Joyce Bloom,
Okay, thank you.
All
and
right,
I used to be on the board.
yes, understood.
Okay, now the other thing I want to know is why do you guys have such authority with the police? With street sweeping?
Why do we?
have what again? Authority over what?
All right. I've come here before,
Yes.
and you always have some policemen here, and you interrogate them about the problems that they might be having. Now, I don't believe that that's your responsibility, okay?
Noted. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now,
Thank
and
you.
what about street sweeping? What is the problem with street sweeping?
It's on the agenda.
It's on our agenda tonight.
On the agenda.
Stay tuned, we're coming to that next.
Oh, good, okay.
All right, thanks again. Anyone else like to address the board this evening?
You can't.
Seeing none, we'll move to reports to the board. A report of the general manager regarding potential collaboration with Orange County Public Works to provide a 2-year grid tree trimming cycle. Mr. Mendoza.
Thank you, President Casey, members of the board. This is follows in line with some of the comments we've just received from our residents and also some of the comments we've received from the board here. On August 15th, I met with Orange County Public Works Department, along with our arborist, Mary Kingman, and we exchanged some ideas regarding our trees. And as you know, they recently came through Rossmore, and they made a lot of major improvements to our infrastructure, to our curbs and our sidewalks. And at that time, as you know, Mr. Marco mentioned that they did recognize 2 trees in Martha Ann that they had replaced sidewalks and gutters a couple of times and decided to remove those trees. Mary and I met with them and we talked about it, and the trees have been removed and they will be replaced. However, in our discussions, some of the questions we asked was, okay, you have a number of other districts and areas that you take care of. Who's your arborist? And it was Great West Arborist, just like ours. So we asked them how many times you trim your trees and how often. They said they're on a 2-year grid pattern. And in the discussions, they came up with an idea that they would like us to consider, and it's in the infancy stage, so I don't want to make it sound like it was a concrete offer, but I did talk to them today. They're still interested. We're to move forward. They mentioned that we're on a 4-year grid pattern, and it would be opportunistic for them to help us because of the cost associated with coming out and picking up limbs that have fallen on weekends, nights, and even weekdays. So if a limb is heavy enough and we can't lift it, we call the county, and that's part of our agreement with them, or part of their workload that they encumber that. So their point was, if the trees were trimmed a little, every 2 years, and they could help us, they would. So they're looking into coming up with a formula and a cost that they could live with. They're not going to be recharging us, to my knowledge. That was the agreement, that we'd do a 2-year grid pattern also. And the way that would work was we'd continue to pay for a grid trim every year. They would jump in every year. So now you're trimming 2 grids a year, and so it's a 2-year grid pattern. It's a win-win if it could happen. I want to work with Tarquin here to make a strong agreement. Right now, the last agreement we had with them was in 2007, and that has expired. So, in working with Tarquin and discussing this with Mary, and also being very candid with their staff, we do not want to jeopardize our latent powers. We do not want to give up our trees and our parkways, and that we would recognize in an agreement that the reason this is being done was it's advantageous to the infrastructure, and it would keep costs down on them also in coming out in emergencies. So they saw the benefits, and they're willing to look into that. They're crunching numbers. They're working with their county council also, and I have an old agreement that I believe Henry Tabata had put together, and it was very similar to this, and it was a very good agreement that was pushed back by the county a few years back. And it seems like they're recognizing that this might be a benefit to both of us. So I just want to bring this attention to the board. I want to let you know that we're in negotiation. We're talking about that, and get any feedback from you that you would like to give.
Well, what's the next step? Is for you to then come up and vet this with the tree committee, and then the tree committee presents their findings back to the board? Is that the process here?
Well, I was going to wait for the Orange County to come back and say, we're interested. Maybe we can meet with the tree committee and them, and iron out with Tarquin and a rough draft agreement that we could all start.
How quickly do you think this will move?
It could move pretty quickly.
Because we have a tree committee, but also if this is something that can come back quickly,
yeah, it
we can also just bring it to the whole board.
We don't even have a draft agreement.
We don't have
yet.
a draft agreement.
Oh, so, yeah.
Okay.
I just wanted to let you know.
So we got
all
a
right.
ways. Okay.
We have to have an agreement that at least both sides are pretty
Okay.
close to.
Yeah.
In the interim, Mary and I have met. We've looked at our budget internally, And we've come up with I think I've mentioned this to you, a plan to stay in this grid. So we're coming up on a new grid right now. And we also pay an amount for safety trims. And Orange County Public Works will provide those safety trims. They're doing that. So with our increment that we've been supplementing, I'm asking Mary to move to the next grid and to pick out those trees that we should be trimming on a 3-year cycle at least. And she's jumping ahead and doing that now, and that's planned. We're moving now doing that. So she'll be in grid whatever it is, and she'll be jumping to the next grid, taking care of those sycamores, those trees that are problematic, and to make sure they get trimmed.
Mr. Mendoza, I think this agreement with the county, assuming we have proper control so that, the county doesn't do what we want, not what they want, it sounds like a great win-win. And it seems like what most of our constituents want. I did want to ask you about that. There does seem to be, maybe somebody just drew a line in the wrong place, but if you look behind there. It looks like an excluded
part of our neighborhood.
The area north of the shopping center.
Above 2017, 2020.
It's an error.
So is that part of 3 or 2?
Yeah. We draw the line, but.
Is it part of 3 or 2?
It's being trimmed, that area?
Correct.
Yeah, everything's being trimmed.
Is it part of grid 3 or grid 2?
Or do you know?
Without having Mary here, I really wouldn't be able to tell you.
Okay.
All right.
But it is.
It's in one of
just
them.
an omission on,
Somebody drew an extra line.
Yeah.
That'd be me. That's what
That'll
I'm
be you,
saying.
okay. Well, we should be sure and fix it on the website once we nail that down, yeah.
No, we exclude you. No,
Found the culprit.
I agree with Mark. Good luck with your negotiations. I think it's worthwhile to have these discussions and come back to us with something, but we have to maintain local control. We have to create standards and consistency. So they're not going by their playbook and we have a different playbook. Yeah. So there's a lot for you to ferret out and get back to us with.
Right.
I look forward to it.
All right, thank you.
This committee, that the RCSD, after it was created, wanted to do a lot more. So they took some recommendations from Mr. Tabuada. And one of them was to take care of the trees. Now, prior to you becoming engaged in tree care, the county used to do aesthetic tree trimming for all the trees. And the trees were beautiful and well taken care of. It was when you got the vote to go ahead and trim your own trees that there was no aesthetic tree trimming. In fact, you ruined most of the trees, and you still continue to do so. But just remember that that was put on a ballot, and you convinced the people in Rossmore that you should take care of the trees. But prior to that happening...
What year was that? When was that on the ballot?
I believe it must have been sometime in 67 or 68.
Okay.
Oh, my
I have
God.
it someplace.
There wasn't an RCSD in 1967.
Not till
The
86.
RCSD was
1986.
You're pointing at us like we're ruining your trees from a decision that the people made in 1960s.
Let me
no,
tell-
no,
There was a
no,
community-
I won't let you finish. I'm talking right now. You come in here, and I understand you want to make a difference, but sometimes you're just pointing the finger, saying we're disgusting, and we're
I
doing the
just
best we
wanted to
can, but you're
remind you-
also telling us about something we did in the 1960s.
All right, so it was the 70s. I don't remember
Well, whatever
exactly the
it
date.
was.
Yeah.
After all, time does go by.
But that wasn't Henry
irrelevant.
Taboada who...
But that's what it was.
Wasn't Henry
Aesthetic-
either.
It had nothing to do with Henry Taboada, and there's been no vote on the RCSD since it was established in 1986. Is it?
It's on our
86, yes.
Okay, so then it was after 86.
It wasn't. There was no vote on RCSD. The only vote was the cityhood, and that failed
In 2010.
in
No,
2008.
I'm sorry, but that's one of the things that that was voted on by the community, and to allow you to take care of the trees.
I don't think we need a history lesson.
I'll find it.
Bring it back,
All right,
bring back proof, because
okay.
we all think you're wrong.
Okay.
Well,
We have a historian from
But
the RHS
thank you.
nodding his head too. You're right.
prior to your taking care of the trees, Orange County did aesthetic tree
We need to
trimming.
move on.
Yeah.
Okay,
Look
thank
it
you.
up.
We're going, yeah, thank you. Is there any more discussion on this matter? I think we've covered it rather nicely. No one else?
Nope, we look forward to keeping us informed on it. Thank you.
All right, that brings us to reports to the board. Item 2, report of the general manager regarding street sweeping schedule alternative update. Mr. Mendoza.
Thank you, President Casey, members of the board. At the August 13, 2019 RCSD meeting, staff reported on the benefits of changing the current street sweeping policy ordinance from the first and third Mondays of the month to the first Monday and the first Tuesday of the months for odd number addresses and even number addresses. So therefore, on one Monday, your odd number addresses would be swept. The next day on a Tuesday, your even number addresses would be swept.
Yep.
And that would happen twice a month on the first and third Monday and Tuesdays. So the board asked staff to go back and make a plan and to hit certain aspects of that plan before we moved on. And staff has done that, and during the past month, the following has been completed. We've met with the Long Beach Public Works Department, and they are massaging their bid, and they will come up with a concrete bid sometime in September. As you know, the first estimate was about $60,000, which was in with our budget, but they needed to go back to their finance department and make sure they covered all their bases. The RCSD General Counsel, Tarquin here, will be working on a contract and also maybe just a quasi-resolution or ordinance, but the resolution and ordinance will be coming from the county when that happens, not from our jurisdiction. But so we'll be working on a contractual agreement. There might be a bid process. That's something Tarquin and I are talking about. If we make this move now, I don't know if that's, legally we'd probably have to go out to bid. I have a meeting with RF Dixon, our current contractor. We're meeting tomorrow, but I have talked to him on the phone about this. He's aware, and he's willing to talk and sit down and discuss what the possibilities might be for him to continue. I attended the RHA board meeting, and President Ralph Vardabinian outlined the proposed plan and passed it through their board and at least made them aware of it, and they concurred with it. I have notified the Orange County Sheriff's Department Lieutenant Pat Rich. He's aware of it. He's prepared to adjust enforcement coverage and is open to discussion once the program is approved and finalized. So at least we want to make sure everybody's on, in tune with what we're trying to do. The next one is the big one. I picked this date, but the board needs to check their calendar too if they want to attend. Is a Rossmore stakeholders meeting for our community. I've tentatively scheduled October 3rd at Rush Park here at 7 p.m. to lay out this plan, to invite the sheriffs, the Los Alamitos School District, because this will impact them in a good way, our Traffic Safety Advisory Committee, and the Rossmore community, of course, and want to make sure that everybody's aware. So we're gonna blast it everywhere. We're gonna put it on the wall, our signature ball. Liz has prepared newspaper articles. We're going to put it on the web. We're going to put it in our newsletter. It's going out probably Friday or Monday. So we're going to really hit it and make sure everybody's aware. And we're going to invite it. We're going to make phone calls. We have a phone tree going that we're going to ask certain people to help us call their neighbors. But we want people to come and we want their input. So is October, one of the questions I'm going to ask the board is the October 3rd date. The next one is discussion with Tim Whitaker, from Supervisor Steele's office. Tim is aware of what we're doing. Supervisor Steele is aware of what we're doing, and he's looking into setting up a meeting with the supervisor the 3rd or 4th week of October, second, third, or fourth week of October, and after we have our October 3rd meeting. And in that meeting, we would have our directors DeMarco and Nidickman. No, I believe Barkey and Nidickman. Barkey and DeMarco, right? I'm sorry.
Something like
I have
that.
a little typo here.
Two of the five of us.
Myself, RHA representative, and LAUSD representatives. And we'd want to sit down with the supervisor and talk about our plan, make sure that we had backing with the ordinance and the resolution, and that this is something that she would back us on. And from everything I've heard, Mr. Barkey has been very instrumental in making some of those contacts. It's good to go as long as we can dot all our I's and cross all our T's.
Well, it looks like you have a full court press, community involvement. My just question is, do you think that Long Beach will get back to you in time with the financial aspect
Yes.
of this before October 3rd?
Yes,
Because that, to me, is the critical part. If you have all that, that October 3rd meeting is going to be great.
yes.
But without it, it's kind of, well, we're still in the estimate, not the quotation.
I mean, I agree. It's important that the citizens have the information, but I would want to stress that I don't want this to be a Caltrans type stakeholders meeting where all the information is coming top down and they don't give a damn what anybody, there's no information going the other way. This is going to be where we're going to have a tentative plan, but we are seriously looking for input from the community about whether they like this plan, whether they, prefer changes to it, et cetera, right? Am I right about that?
What we don't want is moving costs because we still aren't sure. We don't have commitments.
Absolutely. We need to be able to tell people this is either going to cost, this is going to cost roughly the same we're paying now, only now we're going to be able to answer the requests of a lot of people to have, alternate day street sweeping for even and odd, or we're going to be able to tell them it's going to cost you a little more and here's the benefit.
Exactly.
Is this something people want?
Yeah, and I think it's very, very important to get the numbers there. Even if they don't come, we should get, you say you're doing a call.
We're doing
I don't know if we can get, remember we did the tree postcard? I mean, this is important enough to where I wouldn't mind I don't know what that cost. Wasn't that much money.
Yeah, it wasn't that bad.
How much was it?
I don't remember.
$1,000? Okay, so
really don't remember.
about $1,000 you can get a
Postage alone, yeah.
Yeah, but no, a company does it and it's below cost because they use their, but we can give a mailer to every resident in Rossmore. The number one thing we need is community support to whatever we go with.
Right.
And I agree with the costs, it would be nice to have, this is how much it's going to cost. I think more importantly, if we are all in agreement with a plan, okay, and the community's behind us, and we have supervisor support, I think even if it costs a little bit more, we still may be able to achieve it, as long as we are together with the plan, okay? But I agree with Director Nickman. If the plan is not Monday and Tuesday, okay, so we've vetted this enough so we can have a discussion with the community. Certainly, Joe's been in every meeting. I've been in a lot of the meetings over the last 3 years. We know if something is harder or easier to do, but if the community wants overwhelmingly to do something, we need to take that information and actually document, almost like a petition type that we've talked with this many people. Here's the sign-in sheet to our meeting. We should probably have another meeting once we have the plan, once we have the community plan, to say this is our plan, are we still in agreement? Because you can't have any naysayer groups or it's going to defeat this. So we really need to all be together on this.
Well, you're never going to get 100%.
I understand.
Get close.
I understand.
This is Rossmore.
I know. But perhaps we get some neutral, not some.
But everything we're doing is coming up with what I call a pre-pack.
Yeah.
We're doing the full court press, we're getting community involvement, we're getting this figured out. We're already going to have a contract that it just needs to be executed. It's all going to be in a nice pre-pack thing for the supervisors still to approve because they still need to make resolutions and measures.
Oh, yeah.
So our job is to create the best pre-pack package to submit to our supervisor.
Right.
And
Indeed, yeah.
I'm really, so what are we doing to get the word out for if we approve October 3rd? Just social media, honor newsletter?
Media website,
Postcard.
press release.
No,
If you want a postcard, we
Okay.
can do that.
I like
think
the
we need-
I'm
post.
not sure
I think we
it's
do.
about the turnaround time on a postcard.
It's a good technique.
Okay, you already have the document, so it's a matter of reaching out to them, and they probably already have the list, because
Yeah,
we did it
no.
already.
And it's going to go in the newsletter.
It's going to go in the newsletter. Everything short of the postcard, to me, is, because of the cost of the postcard, which is not that much, everyone's going to get a mailer, and it's a hard copy. I think that might
That meets
be-
the checklist. We alerted everybody.
Yeah. I want, this is a big issue in Ross Morris street sweeping. So I know they get something in the mail like this, they're more apt to come than look on our, website or, even the thing on the wall. I mean, that becomes, blurry to a lot of people because they always see something on the wall. It says something, I don't remember what it says.
I agree, yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's not adequate.
If you need a board vote on the postcard, I think we should do a postcard. If we can get it in time.
If that looks good to you, then.
We're fine.
It looks good to me. I'm fine with the October 3rd date, but.
Can we do motions during presentations? Report to the board, Tarquin? Is that out of context for someone to make a motion to spend the money on a postcard?
I don't think you need a motion to spend the money on the
because it's
postcard.
under 5.
It's within the general manager's spending
Oh.
authority.
I have the authority.
You have the authority.
Yeah, so
We back you.
it's done.
Done. Thank you.
He worked hard. Now he has the authority to send postcards.
And then what about
I
October?
better not be getting a lot of postcards in the mail. I don't want the junk mail.
And then what about October 3rd?
I'm okay.
Are we good?
As long as we have everything you need for the October 3rd. As long as Long
Yeah.
Beach gets back with the contract and we know it is a firm price, it's not
Confident.
something that's going to wiggle 3 months later.
I'll be out of
God.
town October 3rd, but don't worry about me. You guys go for it.
Mr. Brendan, you're quite certain about Long Beach?
I'll get on the phone again tomorrow, but they were.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So October.
Not right now, thank you. No, I think we got it covered, thanks. Okay, any other comments on this? I think we've got a great direction on it. And
If it's really a question rather than a statement, I'd kind of like to hear her question.
you want to hear the question?
It's out of order, I understand, because we're
It
in
is,
reports
yeah.
to board, not public
Is it brief?
comment, but is it really a question?
Yes, it's a question.
I'm not the
Bring it on.
president.
Okay. How much money does the RCSD get for every ticket that the police issue to somebody whose car is parked on the street?
Zero.
I think we get nothing.
Exactly zero.
You know the answer. Zero.
Well, I don't know the answer to that.
Now,
She does
you-
now.
You do now.
Zero.
Thank you for asking. It's a good question.
It is, it's valid.
We get no,
Yeah.
You don't get any money?
No.
We're not necessarily happy
Goes
about it.
somewhere
County
into
does,
the
but we
county
don't.
coffers.
we're not in the line of entities that get money for traffic tickets or
No.
Another
anything else
question.
for that matter.
Is it possible that people who do get tickets can get them after before the street, after the street sweeper comes?
We're working on it.
We're working on that.
That is probably, that's a huge complaint. Lots of people complain about that. We're working on it. That is totally within the discretion of the sheriff. We have no control over it.
But he listens.
We're asking him. Mr. Mendoza, did you have anything to add to that? Or?
Other than this alternative street sweeping on alternative days will partially solve that problem because people will have a place to park their car across the street if their
Oh, yeah.
house is being swept on an even number day or odd number day.
My own feeling is that they would forget about it after,
We hope-
which day do we
let's hope
apply
not.
for?
But we do
That's
get
okay.
people
thank you.
complaining that they're not ticketing enough, and then we
That's-
get people complaining that they're
Yes.
ticketing too much. So you know what it's like to be a public official.
Most people have gardeners who clean the streets anyway. If you don't have a
lot of
gardener
them
who
do.
does that, you should fire him. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Okay, that moves us to the consent calendar. And does anyone want to pull anything, or do we have a motion on approving the consent calendar?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Public hearing, we have none. Resolutions, we have Resolution 1, number 1909-1001, a resolution of the Board of Directors of the Rossmore Community Services District approving and adopting September as Emergency Preparedness Month in Rossmore. And I think this is a great idea. Mr. Mendoza.
President Case, members of the board, to use a term that Mr. Maynard just mentioned, we're on a full court press in September to bring awareness to our residents regarding emergency preparedness in many different aspects. Liz is putting it in our newsletter. We're going to get newspaper articles out. We're working with the EOC of Orange County to put on some preparedness stakeholder meetings, so they'll be educated. So we're on it. We're not, we just had a recent earthquake. Usually a couple weeks after, everybody forgets. We want to make sure that we're prepared. We want to know what other people are doing. We want to know what LAUSD has planned. We want to know what Seal Beach and Los Al has planned.
Exactly.
And we just want to be aware. We don't want to be the guru of emergency preparedness, but we do want to be the
Participant.
It's important. Yeah.
And support it.
And so this resolution is saying all of September, not
Yes.
just September 2019, but moving forward,
Forever and ever.
our agency will recognize September
Yes,
as
sir.
a time for outreach to do education and awareness of emergency preparedness.
Yes, sir.
Perfect.
Indeed.
I make a motion to adopt
I think it's roll call, isn't
resolution.
it?
Yeah, but you still
still
need
have
a
to make a
motion.
motion.
We need an emotion for that?
Still need a motion.
Yeah.
So let me
Okay.
read. Let me continue. Resolution 19-09-10-01. I motion that we adopt this resolution.
Second.
Roll call.
Roll call vote, please.
Director Barkey?
Aye.
Director Nidickman?
Aye.
Director Maynard?
Aye.
Director DeMarco?
Aye.
And President Casey?
Aye.
Passes 5 to
It's a
0.
done deal.
Great.
Thank you.
Number.
Okay, we have no ordinances this evening, so that brings us to our regular calendar. Discussion regarding permanently changing the date of the Rossmore Community Services District monthly regular board meetings. Mr. Mendoza.
President Casey, member of the board, as you remember on August 13th, our Director Barkey brought up and Nidickman requested this be placed on the agenda. It's a indirect cause of Director Barkey and Nidickman wanting us to be more involved in our communities. Director Barkey mentioned that, by keeping this second Tuesday of the month, we're handcuffed and we're not able to interact with LAUSD, or I think there's a couple other agencies that also work on Tuesday, that meet on Tuesdays, the second Tuesday in particular, and that's Seal Beach. So not only are we not able to attend their meeting, they're not able to attend ours. So there's no communication and there's no presence. So therefore, this report outlines that there's a couple of options. One of the options is going the first Tuesday of the month, and we just want to open the discussion and get feedback from the board on what your thoughts are, and we'll be here to answer any questions on what the negative impact it might be, or if there's any negative impact at all. So with that, I'll turn
Well,
it.
I do want to make one clarification. I'm on page 42 of 48.
Sure.
And it's actually a one-way door in that we still can go to a Los Alameda Unified School District on the fourth Tuesday. We still can participate with the city of Seal Beach. It's just that they can't participate at our meetings, just as a clarification. So we still have the ability to monitor, but they lack the ability to come and participate with us.
Although if they have a major event that some of us want to participate in, say, like want to put a gym across the street from our residences, they're going to be meeting possibly the same day as our meeting.
And they have also sent people, staffers, to our meetings at times, even the head.
Yeah.
There's been times Sherry's come here when it's been an important Tuesday to communicate. So
Since this was
She usually leaves early, by the way.
What I want to
so-
know is, what's wrong with Wednesdays? Is there, I mean, you didn't mention Wednesday, the second Wednesday, just moving our...
Long-term rental in here with the church.
there's a church who rents this.
So this was my idea, if I can make a comment. I've been thinking a lot about this.
Okay.
Well, yeah, since this was your notion.
And I'm not sure it's a great idea to move our meeting now that I've thought about it.
No.
So here's the thing. First of all, any day of the week, there's going to be a conflict with somebody, somewhere, et cetera. The reality is LoSal has meetings twice a month, most months. There's a couple months where they only meet once a month. And I don't know that we need to be at every one of their meetings twice a month. I think if we send a representative there once a month to give an update and be present, that's probably good.
It's 100% more than we're doing now.
Right.
Which one are you, Jeff, which one are you talking about?
That would be the fourth Tuesday.
No. What, the city, that's Los Alamitos, you said?
No, I'm talking about LAUSD
Oh, the
school
school
district.
district, okay.
And really, it was the school district primarily that prompted me to think about changing the meeting. City council meetings, I think, are fine, but we're embedded with LAUSD. We got four LAUSD schools, so I think that's the primary constituency, if you will, that I think we should interact with on a more regular basis. So even if we leave things alone, plus nobody likes to change. All our residents know we're the second Tuesday. Staff is set up for it. We're set up for it. So I don't think it's a big deal. But what I do think is that we should send staff, or ideally a director, to the meeting, LAUSD meeting monthly. I do think that we should send a board meeting or staff to every RHA meeting. I'm planning to go if I'm not out of town or something. And some of the ad hocs, like LAUSD, I don't think should be an ad hoc. I think we should have a standing meeting with them. Maybe it's monthly, maybe it's quarterly, maybe it's every other month. Same thing with Rossmore Homeowners Association. They've requested from us that we also hold a regular meeting. I mean, to me, ad hoc, I'm not as smart as Mark, I'd have to look it up, but to me, ad hoc means there's a specific event that we're trying to solve, a specific issue. So we're creating a meeting with another group to solve a particular issue. Once that issue is solved, we no longer need to meet. With the Homeowners Association, we have an ongoing relationship in forever. And I think there's always issues that are going to come up that are going to require our collaboration and should have our collaboration. So I'd like to see an RHA standing meeting with whatever frequency, and especially with LAUSD, and particularly with LAUSD because we've got 4 LAUSD schools in our community. We need to stay on their radar because there's always issues going on that relates to our kids within our community, such as enrollment, interdistrict transfers, parking, traffic, sweeping, et cetera. So it's not just an issue that we're trying to solve. So those particular bodies, I'd like to see us move from ad hoc designation to standing meeting designation. And then I'd like to suggest that we commit, as an assignment like we do the other meetings, a director to attend once a month the LAUSD meeting when it doesn't conflict with our meeting.
So you're just talking about meetings, not committees. You're not suggesting adding more committees, just participation of the board.
You say committee, I say meeting.
Well, no, there's a huge difference. It's one thing to say, okay, as a group, let's make sure we have coverage for RHA, and Jeff's taking it on, but whenever Jeff, let's make sure a director goes there. It's another thing to say, okay, we need to make sure we have representation of one of our board members at every fourth Tuesday.
School board.
Those are meetings, that's fine, but the way that our committees are set up, we have committees, subcommittees, and ad hoc. Every committee is defined by policy. So we have a tree policy, we have a tree committee. Subcommittees are also defined in policy too. The ad hocs are, like you said, oh my gosh, they want to build a gym. They're going to increase, let's create an ad hoc for that. Let's do an ad hoc for this fourth corner if it's trying to be annexed. But what you're suggesting is just more of a collaboration and an agreement of us 5 gentlemen here that we will do our best to make sure someone's always covering it, and everyone get out your calendars.
So I guess I'm mixing
Well, it sounds
committees
like-
and meetings. So I guess two
Yes.
things. One is a committee set up between RHA and RCSD, and a committee set up with LAUSD and RCSD. And then separate from that, a commitment that we attend specific meetings on a regular basis like RHA and school board.
And we do have an
We
RCSD,
have a-
RHA liaison
Yes, we
ad hoc
do.
committee.
It's ad hoc though.
Yes.
That's
It
right.
could be a subcommittee, it doesn't have to be ad hoc.
Yeah, we can probably, I mean,
Yeah.
So I'm
I mean,
thinking
maybe
of,
what we need is a governmental affairs committee, and then subcommittees under that for RHA, for, or not governmental, public affairs, whatever you want to call it. Community relations, call it community relations, and have subcommittees for the RHA, for the
LEUs,
school district,
Well,
for
he
the
goes to
cities.
Izzy Doc, he goes to a lot of,
Yeah.
Ron goes to a lot of these anyway.
Because we have several of those that sort of,
That creates structure.
yeah, so we have several that sort of all fall under meeting with a,
but I think,
just like we ought to be meeting with the county regularly.
Correct, yes.
But I think what Director Barkey's saying is, okay, so he doesn't like the word ad hoc, okay, so we change, and we don't call it ad hoc, but it's, what you're asking though is have a permanently fixed time that we meet with these entities to go over issues with Rossmore. Not as things come up, then we have a committee meeting.
Correct, that's right.
Kind of like, you know, kind of
Sounds
like
like-
the tree.
That's easy to do. We don't have to adopt new policies or change our policies.
No, we just have to have a commitment that we just have to say, hey, you know what, every 3 months, set a meeting with.
yeah, so whether you call it a subcommittee or a committee or whatever you want to call it, I don't really care what you call it.
Right.
But I just think we should
Third Wednesday of every.
have a standing meeting with RHA, a standing meeting with LAUSD.
I agree.
Someone covers it, yeah.
And if you want to call it a subcommittee and put it under the umbrella of community relations, I'm good with that too.
Yeah, well, as long as they're all covered in terms of what we're
Yeah.
trying to accomplish.
Before, this red section
be
used to be
great, too.
called subcommittees, not ad hoc.
What, really?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I remember
like
that.
the RAC used to be a
Standing
subcommittee.
committees,
Okay.
Standing meetings,
So-
so we don't
so,
have to beg
Michael,
for it.
so you just mentioned
on our
our
calendar.
standing committees
Have that
are
standing-
based upon the powers we have and then what we must do, budget, audit, investment, CIP,
Each of these committees are defined by policy.
by policy.
Yep.
Right.
Okay,
If we don't have a policy for RHA, it would technically not be a
Yeah.
committee.
Right.
okay, all right. Well,
Substantively.
Yes.
I think and I don't want to speak for you, but that the important part of that is that we have a standing structure so that we can meet with these groups on a regular
basis.
And set it up in advance, and I was mentioning to Director Barkey, even having a standing meeting every month or two with Tim Whitaker, so it's on his calendar, and
I like that.
That would really be good.
would be very helpful. So, I mean, all of these things, yeah, I completely agree with Director
Yeah.
Barkey's suggestion on that.
But I think if it needs it, let's make it part of our policy. I mean, part of it is, obviously, we're all pretty busy, except Mark. He just sits around and
He drinks a lot of coffee.
writes legal opinions that I read on Facebook. But besides that, we're all pretty busy, and to the extent that it's policy and part of our job, we get like a little stipend for this meeting or that meeting, whatever. It's not about the money, but that it's part of our policy and job. I think it's more likely to happen than just a random idea that we're sort of committed to and may or may not actually happen.
I like the quarterly frequency. Again, it depends on the issue. You could probably have more, but I agree that we should have certainly all the entities we just discussed, that we should have at least meet with the supervisor, Tim Wernick, once a quarter. Certainly the school board would be nice.
Once a quarter.
At least, at minimum.
That's super important.
It is. It's very important. And the fact that I'm sure, again, you were on the board. I mean, what differentiate the second Tuesday meeting with the, what is it, the fourth Tuesday?
Yeah.
Okay, so were they equal importance?
Yeah, there's
It
no
depends
difference.
on what was on the agenda.
There's no difference.
Okay.
Yeah, they
All
just
right.
have lots to cover, so it takes
that
two
one,
meetings.
again, I would still.
And to be honest, it's not necessarily about us being there to listen to their.
No, it's engagement and our issues.
It's us to have a presence there, to give an update, to go to speak publicly. Hi, I'm from RCSD. This is our role. This is what's going on in our community. If there's any issues with our schools, we're working on street sweeping, traffic, this, that, and the other.
Yeah, exactly.
Thanks for being involved. Nice to see you all. Have a nice day. So Milt used to do that all the time with RHA. Maybe they still send an RHA rep. And it was actually really nice.
Yeah.
Every meeting, he was there, sitting there, public comment. He'd update us about the ongoings of Rossmore and so forth, pass out the news article, newsletter when it would come out. I think it's important.
That is good.
Here's what I suggest. Ron and I are on an organizational committee. Let he and I meet with staff and propose for a future meeting how that structure works.
Like it.
Of what are subcommittees, because we should have a breakdown, because there are actually subcommittees that are under ad hoc, which are truly defined committees. So.
And if we need to change policy.
Exactly. And let Ron and I formalize this over the next couple of months. And in the interim, if someone on your staff wants to calendarize all of these meetings with these other agencies, and start figuring out which of us are going to go to which meetings. Because I know that you're signing up for the school, but there's going to be times you can't.
And trying to coordinate.
So just want to make sure coverage.
Standing dates.
Like to be honest with the RHA, I think it should be a rotation. Because we're all 5 different individuals. And we all put ourselves down for at least 1 to 2 times meeting. And we just kind of
That's been done in the past, but it's kind of dropped through the cracks.
Well, I know, because if it's, if it's not part of our policy and not scheduled, it never happens. And as far as the issue of should we change our meeting, I don't feel strongly about it.
Well, at first I wasn't, but now I'm reversing because.
No, don't do this.
I don't.
The first Tuesday of the month, I would actually be here for there's 2 business travels average per year that I'm not here because I cannot redefine a trade industry show.
We won't miss you that much.
But still, all of a sudden it's like, hey, I'd be here more often.
The first Tuesday of the month? But Tarquin can't be here the first Tuesday of the month.
That's Tarquin.
So we have to choose. Who do we want there more?
No, I'm obviously good with the second Tuesday and have been for the
So
last 5
basically
years.
with Tarquin's schedule, with the district schedule, I mean, we could do the third Wednesday, and that would be, the third Monday, but that would be conflict with Los Al, who only has 1 meeting a month.
No, but Mondays are hard, as Joe pointed out, because you got
holidays.
You got the church here on Sundays, and it takes a day to set everything up. And
Yes.
Yeah.
So the church is here every Wednesday?
Every Sunday and Wednesday.
Every Sunday and Wednesday.
now they can take the
Next time.
the Arrowhead Pond from ice skating to basketball
In
less
about
than 24 hours.
Yeah.
But it takes us 2 days to set this place up.
They have more staff
I
at the
think it's 4
Arrowhead.
hours.
We have to hire all those people.
Robert Irvine can convert an entire restaurant in 48 hours.
Yeah, I know.
Let's move on.
All right, so we have direction on this, I do believe.
Yeah.
In terms of moving forward.
No one's making a motion. The direction is, let's set up a meeting, Mr. Mendoza, with Ron and I.
Correct.
Yeah.
Organization.
We'll bring our
I
policy
don't think you need a
books,
motion for that.
Yeah, and
and we'll try to create a blueprint.
Yep,
Okay.
that's the idea. All right, moving on. We are at general council items. I'm not going to overlook you, Tarquin.
Thank you, Director Casey. I would propose to the board to you President Casey, a motion to take the closed session item out of order, if that's acceptable to the board, and recess in a closed session at this time, but that's purely in your discretion, of course.
So do it now, is what your
So that then we
recommendation?
do the general manager and board items after the closed
Yes.
session?
Correct.
And that is because?
I have Kim Barlow, who is appearing by telephone. Unfortunately, she broke her ankle this weekend, and I'd like to get her out of the way and off that obligation if possible.
I think we can do that. Anyone object to that?
Without objection?
You would just,
So
just
that
need a-
means
just
we
need a-
are going
we just
to...
need a motion to reorganize the agenda as stated in a vote.
Okay. I move to reorganize the agenda, to move the closed session next, and so before general counsel items, general manager, and board members.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned to closed session.
Not adjourned,
Well,
recessed, right?
Recess.
It's a recess, not
Yeah,
a...
not an adjournment.
Well, if I adjourn, I can go home.
Right.
Oh, so,
Can we
I guess that's not good.
prorogue the board? That's my-
Great Britain reference.
Yeah.
We're a law firm that sells that.
How bizarre is that?
I would have pulled out your articles of incorporation that says you're a vitamin company.
Oh, God.
Hey, Don. Good.
It's going. Got somewhere to be.
Busy, busy, busy. Okay, here we go. We've just come back from our closed session, and I want to turn it over at this time to our legal representation for a comment, for further comment. Tarquin.
Thank you, President Casey. Just note for the record that approximately 9 o'clock, the board recessed into closed session. They had a discussion. They returned from closed session at approximately 9:40, and there was no reportable action. And that ends the closed session report.
Thank you. All right, that brings us back to general counsel items. Tarquin, anything further?
Thank you, nothing further.
All right, that's good for the evening, and now we are...
I'm sorry, Director.
I'm sorry?
President Casey. There was a General Manager Mendoza just reminded me. So we discussed briefly at the last meeting as to who owns the Parkway.
Oh, yeah.
So the general principles of ownership for the Parkway is a homeowner typically owns the lot. The lot typically extends to the center line of the street. The county normally has an easement for road or street purposes. That easement includes the parkway or the median with a normal residential development. So in essence, the homeowner is the fee owner of the underlying parkway. The county has an easement over the parkway for road purposes, street purposes. That includes their authority as road commissioner, which includes the authority over the trees. The district, pursuant to the county's authority, has the authority of road commissioner over the easement for purposes of controlling the street trees. That in a thumbnail sketch of the ownership interests in the parkways.
Are you saying that, I mean, you said as a general rule, have you actually examined Rossmore maps to confirm that?
No, I've not exactly gone through and examined Rossmore maps. I'm aware that the county approximately 2007 had done some sort of a study that looked at the actual plat data and so forth. So but I've not actually gone out and examined it. But that is a typical subdivision in Southern California.
Okay, you said the county had looked at the...
That is my understanding, that the county had looked at it in approximately 2007.
I mean, because I've seen a lot of cases where you know, the homeowner only owns it to the edge of the sidewalk, and the county owns it in sidewalk and fee, and, you know, that's also common in Southern California, but there's all sorts of variations, and some information had led me to believe that it was not consistent throughout Rossmore, but
Correct.
I've never done
It's not, the information I have indicates that it is likely the case. There may be differences depending on the lot, depending on the shape and size of the parcel and so forth. Okay. If the board would like me to do that, I can go out and analyze the data. I didn't want to do that, without authority to do that, because it would, you know.
I think that, I mean, this could be a option, is just to look at several plat maps of blocks in Rossmore, and to your point, Mark, you will, if in fact the lot goes to the center of the road, it will be a dotted line or a line, and then the road will be on top of it. If what you're saying is correct in Rossmore, or it won't. The lot will come to the curb, you know, and have a measurement, and then the road will have a measurement, and then the,
right. I have a survey at home for mine, so I could go and look at that.
Yeah, I mean, I would, I don't know how much research, but it would be nice to have a statement from you, Tarquin. Okay, so it certainly, I'm not asking you to do all kinds of hours of research, but it would be nice, the statement you just said, it would be nice to memorialize it in a document to where, you know, staff would have it if that question came up. Hey, who owns the, you know, here's our statement from our attorney. Okay.
Yeah.
If you feel you need more research, then I would say, you know, ask the board or ask Joe to, you know, it may take a couple hours for me to research it, but it would be nice to put to bed who owns what, and I know maybe it's not in the law books, but at least we have an opinion, okay? And it's not just our opinion. We're not guessing about it, you know.
You know, Director DeMarco, thank you very much. I understand that. One of the issues too is that, I mean, to know for an absolute legal certainty, you do actually have to look at every lot in Rossmore to be able to make a statement that, you know, they all are this, or some are this and some are that. I don't know if it's necessarily to the board's, the best interest of Rossmore to make a blanket statement, you know, for public consumption that everything is this or everything is that. You know, candidly, it's the homeowner's responsibility to know where their property line ends and whether or not they have an easement over their property. Nonetheless, I mean, I can certainly assure you from legal certainty that the district, pursuant to the county's easement, has control over the trees in the median, or sorry, trees in the parkway, without question. That's been well established. But nonetheless, I can provide more information by way of memo to the board, and the board can take a look at it and, you know, direct me how you'd like me to proceed.
It would be nice to have a statement.
Okay. Not more than a couple hours, right?
Yeah, clarification.
I mean, even so, what comes to my mind is, okay, so pick a couple blocks and define those. Okay, so here's a block here in Rossmore, this to where you don't make a blanket statement. You're basing it off of a public record of that block. This block says this, just so we can explain to homeowners, you know.
I'd be happy to look at the available data.
All right. Certainly, we don't want to spend thousands of dollars on it. It would just be
absolutely
we would like
not.
just a statement. No. If it costs too much money, then we don't have the I guess.
Yeah, then we don't want your help.
I think I understand what the board would like.
It's too variable.
Anything else this evening?
That's it.
Okay, thank you. That brings us to general manager items. Mr. Mendoza.
Thank you, President Casey, member of the board. Just to give you a brief update, we did conduct our annual audit on August 22nd. We will be setting a meeting with the audit committee later this month and then providing a full report to the RCSD board in October. Staff will be also providing a National Night Out proposal for 2020 at the October board meeting. We're meeting with Lieutenant Rich and some other community members and RHA to plan a national night out around one of our concerts in the park. So we'll kill two birds with one stone and and enjoy the night, and also give exposure to our law enforcement, our safety. I am continuing to research the risk management insurance agencies to evaluate the best possible service and cost benefit to our district. I've had preliminary quotes from JPIA, Joint Powers Insurance Authority. I'm meeting with them on Monday, excuse me. I'm meeting with them on Monday to discuss, details and to possibly set up some times where they can come out and see our operation, see our buildings, talk to our staff, see what kind of duties they perform, and give us a good cost. The board also asked me to update on the Southern California's light pole situation and the LED lighting. What I found was, unfortunately, it was done by two different entities in one department, and they didn't talk to each other.
Oh, God.
And therefore, we didn't get notified. And these two different projects were totally different, and they didn't coordinate them. And sometimes they can't coordinate them depending on the flow they have going within each one. But the lights that are up there are the lights we purchased, and they didn't alter them, they didn't change them, and we got what we paid for. Okay.
That's true.
Thanks for checking in on that.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Because we're a member of the Los Alamitos Chamber now, and Mr. Casey attended a breakfast with me the other morning, we are hosting a Heroes Lunch here on September 29th. You're all invited. Please RSVP through Liz. So far, Casey has RSVP'd. The luncheon starts at 11. We're honoring sheriffs, first responders, military.
Did you say the 29th?
No, 19th.
Okay, all right, thanks.
And
I'm reading it right now.
it'll be here in the main auditorium, and it's going to be a nice event. And we're joining in with it, and we're part of this, part of the chamber down. It's good to see our involvement. The other one is, since we're new to the chamber, they're going to be doing a small ribbon cutting, just a ceremonial thing after the event out in front. And if Mr. Casey's here, he can take the photo and we can get it out in the newspaper.
Why not?
The playground light you guys approved has been added. On your way out, you can take a look at it. It's been up there, for about a month. And people are enjoying it. People like it. I think it's on. I believe the timer's still on.
That's great.
And that concludes my report. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Mr. General Manager. That brings us to board member items this evening. How about Director Barton?
Thank you. Nothing tonight, actually. I'll pass so we can get the heck out of here.
Good man. Director Nittickman.
Thank you. I don't have much. Tomorrow, as was noted earlier, is September 11th. Thank you to everybody for attending and giving your input, and I appreciate that it was done in a calm and productive manner, and I think, I hope everybody else got a lot out of it. I think it could be very constructive, so appreciate that. Much more constructive than next door can sometimes be.
Oh, yeah.
Or I guess the social networks in general. There was a comment made about that somebody could just, get up early in the morning and sneakily trim their tree. And I do want to advise against that if anybody actually thought, oh yeah, I could do that. They won't tell. Mary, our arborist, drives around regularly around Rossmore, and she will note and she will confront you about it. So please don't do that. If you need your tree trimmed, come and talk to our general manager, and we can have a civil conversation. Having gardeners do it in the middle of the night is not being a good neighbor, and it's not a good idea. And, you know, it could end up costing a lot of money and trouble. So that's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Director DeMarco?
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay. So I too appreciate the residents coming in and talking trees. I love our trees in Rossmore. I know that, you know, our arborist wasn't here, Mary Kingman, but I know she's the brunt of a lot of negative comments, certainly on next door. And I've said this many times that Mary works for this district and she follows our policies. And like I said earlier in this meeting, this board controls the policies. This board can change the policies. And in fact, we are working to possibly change our tree policies right now. So it was good to come to this meeting. And it is certainly good to vote for those who didn't come to the meeting to reach out through our general manager, email or in person, and tell us your concerns about how you want our tree policy changed. So the next thing is street sweeping. We've had complaints for, you know, years and years about street sweeping, and we want to fix it. And we are engaged to do something about it. So we want Rossmore to become involved, and we have a meeting on October 3rd, and I want a couple hundred Rossmore residents there to hear the concerns and the direction we need to go. So I invite you to come October 3rd here at Rush Park. Thank you.
That's it this evening. Director Maynard.
I have no comment tonight.
Short and sweet. Well, I have a couple items this evening, so sadly have to hang around for a couple more minutes. I also would like to thank all the residents that came up, and they were being, you know, very nice about their comments on the trees, which allows for a much nicer discourse. And as Director DeMarco mentioned, he's talking about changing the tree policies. I tend to think of more as enhancements, but that's just sort of how I see a process like that. So thank you all for that. Also, our two presenters on the emergency management program. It's long overdue to once again think about this. Sadly, the last time that it was really that forefront in my mind is back when Seal Beach had the problem with the salon at Meritage, which we all know about. And then emergency preparedness was front and center until it sort of dropped off the radar again. So it's high time that we brought this back up and continue to do it on a continual basis, so it's always in front of us. Next, I want to thank, I guess, Mr. Mendoza, and he, in concert with Matt Musselman from the California Highway Patrol, that brought in the radar speeding trailer, and he placed it at a critical area, but there's a lot of critical areas in Rossmore, and I believe, if I understand correctly, that we're going to be moving it to other locations, so our residents are always aware of the idea that you control your speed. Because just 2 days ago, I was on Foster Road doing probably 20 to 25. I was following a white car, and in front of him was a blue car, and I looked up, and about another 10 seconds later, the blue car was in front of me, and the white car passed him, going the other way. So apparently he was not satisfied doing 25 miles an hour. So please don't do that. I mean, I'm not sure if anybody's watching who knows who that is, but nonetheless, that's ridiculous. And lastly, I want to give a shout out again to Tyler Deep and his Chief of Staff, Peter Kim, for once again reaching out to Director Ryan Chamberlain of Caltrans, who I haven't had a chance to talk to him recently, but Caltrans is claiming that they were going to do another noise study in Rossmore last March. Allegedly it rained, and they didn't do it, and somehow they were reporting that it actually was completed, when in fact I think the last official noise study was in 2010, if I'm not mistaken. At any rate, Mr. Kim and Assemblyman Deep wrote a letter explaining to Caltrans that it's long overdue. The narrative has changed in here. There's more noise than ever, and that would they, please consider doing another one at their request, especially along Martha Ann and around over Hopkinson, where, that's the most vulnerable of our schools to the noise and pollution problem. So, thanks to them. And with that, that's all I have. And do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And we are out for this evening.